Greetings, my friend. I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Your presence here means more to me than you might realize, and if you decide to subscribe to the channel, that support would mean even more. Now let me take you into the story I've been meaning to tell. It's remarkable how the smallest decision can change everything. Had I not stopped by the house that Tuesday afternoon, I might still be living under the comforting illusion of loyalty, unaware that betrayal was already living under my roof. My name is Nathan, and what began as a quick trip home to retrieve a forgotten flash drive became the moment that shattered my perception of love and truth. Carla entered my life shortly after the end of what she called a soul-crushing relationship. Her previous partner had chipped away at her self-worth, controlling her every move, isolating her from loved ones, and planting seeds of doubt about her own capabilities. For 3 long years, she endured that emotional captivity before she finally found the courage to leave. By the time our paths crossed, she was cautious, emotionally distant, and understandably distrustful of men. In the beginning, it was obvious she had no intention of starting over with anyone. She kept her distance, her emotions carefully guarded behind a wall she had every right to build. During our first meaningful interaction, when I suggested staying in contact, she didn't hesitate to tell me that dating wasn't on the table. She was committed to her healing process and uninterested in adding complications to her life. Yet there was something about her, a quiet strength, that drew me in. I didn't try to chase her or force a connection. I simply made myself present and dependable. I'd show up at her go-to cafe, ask about her latest design work, and offer a listening ear without judgment or expectations. I never tried to fix her problems or step into the role of a rescuer. I just let her know, in subtle and consistent ways, that she was seen, heard, and respected. In time, she offered me her number, and a line of communication slowly opened between us. Little by little, Carla began to let me into her world. She began to talk about her childhood, the dreams she had for her creative business, and the lingering fears that her past had left behind. The more she opened up, the more evident it became that she no longer saw me as a potential threat. I wasn't trying to change her. I was simply trying to understand her. After many months of this slow-building trust, Carla eventually felt ready to explore the possibility of love again. When she allowed herself to be vulnerable, it felt like something rare and deeply significant. She was everything I had hoped for: intelligent, imaginative, fiercely independent, and effortlessly captivating. Her resilience only deepened my admiration. She told me often that I made her feel safe and valued in a way she'd never known before. It genuinely seemed like we were building a foundation based on truth, respect, and shared purpose. 12 months into our relationship, with both of our families offering their full support, we got married in an intimate ceremony. By that point, Carla had come a long way from the scars of her past and seemed ready to build something new, grounded in honesty. I truly believed we were aligned in our values: faithfulness, openness, and mutual respect. To me, she was more than a spouse. She was my closest ally, the person I trusted most. I shared everything with her: the highs of my career, the frustrations, the wild ideas, the quiet hopes. Though my job in marketing demanded a lot, I always made sure it never came at the cost of our relationship. I'd be home each evening by 6. We'd cook dinner together, watch our favorite shows, and talk late into the night. For 3 years, our life together felt stable, whole. I had no reason to believe it wouldn't last. I truly thought what we had could weather any storm. Then came an otherwise uneventful Tuesday, the day everything fell apart. That morning unfolded like any other. I was making last-minute adjustments to a major pitch I was scheduled to deliver that afternoon, a proposal that could significantly impact our company's revenue. I had poured weeks of effort into perfecting every slide, every projection. All of it was stored on a flash drive that I normally kept in my laptop case. But just after 1 p.m., as I prepped for the 3 o'clock meeting, I realized the drive was missing. I tore through my desk drawers, coat pockets, and every bag. Still nothing. Then I remembered. I'd been working on the file from home the night before and had likely left it in the USB port on my home office computer. I did a quick calculation. If I moved fast, I could make the round trip in time. It would be tight, but I'd be back before the meeting started. I grabbed my keys, got in the car, and drove off. My mind consumed with thoughts of data, clients, and closing the deal. But as I pulled up near the house, something struck me as strange. A dark SUV was parked right out front. I didn't recognize it. Rather than pulling into the driveway, I parked a little farther down the street, curiosity beginning to stir. Who could be visiting my wife in the middle of the day? I walked up the path and unlocked the front door without a second thought. What I walked into brought my entire world to a halt. There, in the middle of the living room, was Carla, locked in an embrace with a man I had never seen before. They were kissing with intensity, both partially undressed, clothing scattered around them. For a moment, the scene didn't even register. It felt like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. But there was no mistaking it. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a moment of weakness. It was a full-blown affair, unfolding in the very space we'd built together, a space I thought was sacred. I stood there, frozen. Disbelief, anguish, numbness. The woman I had opened my heart to, the one I had supported and cherished, had chosen to throw all of that away. They leapt apart as soon as they noticed me. Carla began to plead, telling me it was a horrible mistake, insisting that she could explain, that I wasn't seeing what I thought I saw. But I couldn't even respond. My throat locked up and my mind went blank, except for the overwhelming image of betrayal burning itself into my memory. Without a word, I turned and walked toward my home office. I could hear her behind me, calling my name, likely trying to understand what I was going to do next. I removed the flash drive from my computer, slipped it into my pocket, and walked out of the house without saying a word. I passed both of them in silence. The rest of the workday felt like I was trapped in some kind of waking dream. I moved through it as if in a haze, pretending to function, while the scene I'd stumbled upon that morning played over and over in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Carla wrapped around that man, kissing him on the couch we used to sit on together. I made it through the meeting on autopilot, answering questions and presenting the slides I'd prepared, but my focus was gone. My manager kept glancing at me with quiet concern, clearly sensing something was off. I expected him to ask me to stay behind, to press me for what was going on. But once the clients had gone, he said nothing. As the clock neared 6, the time I'd normally be packing up to go home to Carla, I stayed rooted to my chair. I didn't move. I buried myself in small, meaningless tasks, clearing out emails, organizing files, touching up old projects that could have waited. It wasn't about productivity. I just couldn't face the idea of going back to that house. Most of the office had cleared out by then. I was still sitting at my desk, mindlessly repeating the same task over and over, staring blankly at the screen. That's when my boss approached. He didn't say much, just looked at me with genuine concern and said, "Nathan, come with me." There was no question in his voice, no room for refusal. He told me to grab my things. I shut down my computer, shrugged on my jacket, and followed him out. We drove separately, and he led me to a quiet bar not far from the office. A low-key place with dim lighting and just a handful of patrons. The kind of place made for conversations, not distractions. We found a booth in the back and ordered drinks. Once we were seated, he turned to me, his tone direct but kind. He said he'd noticed a change in me that afternoon and wanted to know what was going on. I tried to keep it together, but the moment he asked, everything poured out. I told him how I'd come home unexpectedly that morning and found Carla with another man, how they were on the couch, barely dressed, acting like I didn't exist. She'd claimed it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I told him how much I'd given to that relationship, how I'd supported her through the aftermath of her abusive past, how I thought we had built something real. But in that moment, everything I believed about us collapsed. I didn't just lose trust in her. I started to doubt myself, my ability to judge character, to feel safe. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't offer cliches or advice. He just sat there and listened, really listened, occasionally nodding to show he was still with me. When I was finished unloading all of it, the heartbreak, the anger, the disbelief, he asked me what I planned to do now. Was I thinking about ending the marriage? Was divorce something I was considering? The question hit hard, not because it was cruel, but because I hadn't allowed myself to think that far ahead. I told him the truth. I didn't know. I couldn't think clearly. Every time I tried to picture the future, all I saw was that image, Carla with someone else. It had taken over everything. He reminded me that regardless of what had happened, I still had choices. I could let the betrayal define me, or I could choose how to respond. Then he shared something personal, his own experience with infidelity. He wasn't married, he said, but there had been someone he loved deeply who'd cheated on him too. I asked him if that experience was why he never married, and he said yes. The pain had closed off something in him, and he'd never felt secure enough afterward to make that kind of commitment again. But he made it clear he wasn't encouraging me to follow in his footsteps. He didn't want me to shut down or isolate. He only wanted me to understand that I had the power to shape what came next. We stayed for a while, drinking slowly and talking about trust, how hard it is to rebuild once it's broken, and how betrayal leaves wounds that never fully fade. He opened up more about his past, about how it shaped his views on relationships. That honesty, that vulnerability, gave me a sliver of clarity, just enough to breathe again. Later that night, when I finally returned home, Carla was waiting. She launched into a carefully prepared explanation that what had happened was an accident, an emotional misstep that spiraled. She said it wasn't premeditated, that it was the first and only time. The man was her trainer, someone she'd gotten too close to over time. Their connection had blurred boundaries, and that afternoon, things had gone too far. She said she loved me. She begged me not to walk away from everything we'd built over what she described as a lapse in judgment. She promised to do whatever it took to make things right. I didn't respond. In the days that followed, I shut her out entirely. I contacted a divorce attorney and began the process. I didn't entertain her apologies. I refused to have the conversations she tried to start. I began sleeping in the guest room, leaving the house before sunrise and returning long after dark. As far as I was concerned, she was no longer part of my life. I needed distance, room to think without being manipulated by her guilt or tears. Eventually, the divorce went through. It was a quick process. No children, no shared property to complicate things. Carla didn't contest any of it. She let it happen. The betrayal had been too deep, too humiliating to come back from. I couldn't shake the image of them in our living room. Couldn't stop wondering how long it had been going on, how often I'd been lied to in my own home. Still, I haven't stopped believing in love. I haven't given up on the idea that trust and connection are possible. But I've learned a hard truth. I will never again tolerate someone cheating and trying to convince me it was meaningless. That night at the bar, my boss's quiet understanding, his willingness to just sit and talk, may have saved me from making the mistake of staying. Some betrayals are final. Some moments strip away the illusion and reveal a person's true nature. If I hadn't come home early that day, I might have spent years living a lie. Sometimes, the worst moment of your life is the one that sets you free. What this experience taught me is that words are easy, but actions tell the real story. And they always will. Carla could have offered apologies and made lofty declarations about changing, but her actions that day spoke louder than any words ever could. In that moment, I saw who she truly was, the version of her that surfaced when she assumed no one was watching. That was the authentic Carla, the one I would have spent my life with. not the carefully curated image she presented whenever I was nearby. Now, as I slowly rebuild the foundation of my life, my boundaries are clearer, and my understanding of what I will and will not accept in a relationship has sharpened significantly. I'm not bitter, nor have I given up on love, but I am far more mindful about where I place my trust, and I no longer ignore the red flags I once minimized. My boss and I still collaborate closely, and every so often we'll grab a drink and dive into conversations that span everything from day-to-day work challenges to the larger questions life throws at us. Over time, he's evolved from being just my manager to becoming someone I genuinely consider a friend. I'll always carry gratitude for the way his perspective and support helped anchor me during such a painful chapter. The lesson I walked away with is simple and powerful. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. What Carla did wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate choice to betray someone who loved her, and in a space that was supposed to symbolize the very center of our commitment. That moment told me everything I needed to know about where we were heading. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is seeing the truth early on, before more time is wasted building something on a shaky foundation. Even though my marriage to Carla was short-lived, it left me with enduring insights about what it means to truly honor trust and mutual respect. I now understand the deep importance of choosing a partner whose core values, particularly around fidelity and emotional integrity, mirror your own. Today, I find myself in a far more stable and grounded place than I was during those confusing months when I was still coming to terms with what had happened. That incident with the flash drive turned my life upside down in ways I couldn't have imagined. But in retrospect, it redirected me away from a relationship that was fundamentally dishonest, and toward a future where my love and loyalty can be shared with someone truly worthy. And with that, this chapter of my life comes to an end. I'd love to know what you think. Feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for being here with me today. If this story resonated, I invite you to explore more of the content on this channel. Until next time, be well.